Admiral Jorvik stood on the bridge of his warship, staring at the battlefield ahead. The enemy ship, a single, unidentified warship, floated calmly in space, completely unarmed. It had already wiped out half of Rathok's fleet, and now it stood alone against an entire Xyric armada. Jorvik was not impressed. "It's one ship," he growled, his yellow eyes narrowing. "One ship against hundreds. This fight is already over." His officers nodded in agreement. They had fought countless wars, conquered dozens of species, and crushed every fleet that dared to challenge them. No single ship, no matter how advanced, could survive against the full force of the Xyric Empire. "Prepare all weapons," Jorvik ordered. "We end this now." The command was sent across the fleet. Hundreds of Xyric warships locked onto the enemy ship. The most powerful weapons in the Empire, plasma cannons, fusion missiles, railguns, were all charged and aimed. Fire. The entire sky burned. A wave of destruction erupted from the Xyric fleet. Thousands of plasma bolts, dozens of nuclear warheads, and high-energy projectiles raced toward the lone warship. The sheer force of the attack was enough to shatter a planet's surface. No ship, no matter how strong, could survive such an attack. Jorvik watched with satisfaction as the weapons struck their target. And then, the warship vanished. Jorvik's smirk froze. The entire fleet went silent. Where did it go? One of his officers shouted, eyes wide with confusion. Scanners detected nothing. No explosion. No debris. No energy signature. It was as if the ship had never existed. Jorvik frowned. "It's a trick," he muttered. "They must have some kind of cloaking device." Before anyone could respond, the alarm sirens blared. "It's behind us," a crew member shouted. Jorvik spun around, his heart pounding. The warship had reappeared, but now it was directly behind the Xyric fleet, positioned perfectly to strike. Before Jorvik could react, a pulse of light spread from the human ship. And then, chaos. One by one, Xyric warships went dark. Their engines shut down. Their weapons failed. Their shields collapsed. Crew members screamed as their controls became unresponsive. "What's happening?" Jorvik roared, slamming his fist on the command panel. But his screens flickered with static. His warship, the flagship of the Xyric Armada, was now nothing more than a floating hunk of metal. No fire, no explosions, no visible damage. But the fleet was dead. "Admiral," one of his officers gasped. They didn't destroy us. They just shut us down." Jorvik's blood ran cold. For the first time in his life, he felt fear. The warship sent a message. A simple, calm voice came through the speakers. "Your weapons are useless. Your fleet is powerless. Retreat or be erased." Jorvik clenched his claws. The Xyric Empire had never surrendered to anyone. Never. But at that moment, he knew the truth. This was not a battle. It was a lesson. And the Xyric Empire had just been humbled. Commander Rathok watched in disbelief as the enemy warship remained completely unharmed. His fleet had just unleashed a full-power assault. Plasma torpedoes, energy cannons, disruptor beams, everything. And yet, the enemy ship did not even move. No shields flickered, no armor cracked. It was as if their weapons had simply vanished before making contact. Rathok's claws dug into the armrest of his chair. "That's impossible," he muttered. His second-in-command, Officer Krell, double-checked the scanner readings. "Commander, our weapons hit the target, but there's no damage, not even a scratch." Silence filled the bridge. The crew stared at the massive warship floating before them. It was black as the void, sleek and smooth, with no visible weapons or markings. It looked unnatural. Rathok gritted his teeth. He had fought hundreds of battles. He had conquered entire worlds. No ship in the galaxy was invincible. "Fire again," he ordered. His fleet obeyed. More blazing plasma bolts streaked across the darkness. More missiles roared through space, targeting the enemy ship from all angles. And again, nothing. Not a single impact. Rathok's breathing quickened. What kind of technology is this? Before anyone could answer, the enemy warship moved. It was fast. Unnaturally fast. One moment it was floating silently. The next, it had shifted positions instantly, appearing directly in front of Rathok's command ship. Too fast, too precise, too controlled. "Shields to maximum," Krell shouted. But it was too late. The warship attacked. A single pulse of blue energy erupted from its hull, silent and perfect. And then, one of Rathok's destroyers vanished. No explosion, no wreckage. It was simply gone. A chilling silence filled the bridge. Rathok's heart pounded as he stared at the empty space where the ship had been. His fleet had never seen a weapon like this. It didn't just destroy its targets. It erased them. Panic spread among the Zyrek officers. "Commander, Golu, what do we do?" Krell's voice was shaking. For the first time in his life, Rathok didn't know. Then, the enemy ship sent a message. A cold, robotic voice echoed across the comms. "You have made your choice." The signal cut out, and the real battle began. Admiral Jorvik's fleet arrived in full force. Hundreds of warships, battleships, cruisers, and dreadnoughts surrounded the enemy warship, their weapons locked in charge. The Zyrek Empire had ruled the galaxy for centuries, and no single ship, no matter how powerful, would stand against them. Jorvik stood on the bridge of his massive flagship, his yellow eyes filled with confidence. "This ends now," he declared. Commander Rathok, still shaken from his humiliating defeat, tried to warn him. "Admiral, this is no ordinary enemy. Our weapons do nothing. Our defenses are useless. We must retreat and—" Jorvik laughed. "Retreat? From a single ship? Have you gone mad?" Rathok clenched his fists. He had seen it happen. He had watched ships disappear without a trace. He knew the truth, but no one wanted to listen. Jorvik turned away from him. "All ships, fire at full power. Wipe it from existence." The entire Zyrek fleet unleashed hell. Thousands of plasma bolts, high-energy missiles, and particle beams lit up the void. The combined firepower of the Zyrek Empire was enough to shatter moons, to turn planets into dust. And yet, the warship moved. Not dodging, not evading. It simply vanished. The Zyrek fleet's sensors glitched. Their scanners showed nothing. No readings, no energy signatures. It was just gone. The bridge of Jorvik's flagship fell silent. The Admiral's smirk faded. His claws tapped against the control panel. "Find it." And then, "Admiral, it's behind us." Jorvik spun around, eyes widening. The warship had reappeared, positioned directly behind the Zyrek fleet, and before anyone could react, it attacked. A wave of silent energy spread from the warship, and one by one, Zyrek warships began shutting down. Engines failed, weapons powered off, shields collapsed. Jorvik's flagship shook violently as the systems crashed. Officers scrambled at their control panels, shouting in panic. "We've lost all power. Weapons are offline. I can't move the ship." Jorvik's blood ran cold. This wasn't destruction. This wasn't an attack. This was control. The Zyrek fleet wasn't being defeated. It was being neutralized. And that was far, far worse. A message came through the fleet's comms. A calm, human voice spoke. "Your weapons are useless. Your ships are powerless. Retreat or be erased." Jorvik clenched his fists. The Zyrek Empire had never surrendered to anyone. Never. But now, for the first time, he had no choice. Admiral Jorvik stared in horror at the battlefield before him. The once mighty Zyrek fleet, the pride of the Empire, was now drifting helplessly in space. Hundreds of warships, battleships, cruisers, dreadnoughts, silent. Engines dead, weapons offline. The human warship had not destroyed them. It had simply shut them down, as if it were playing with them. Jorvik gritted his teeth, his claws tightening into fists. How was this possible? What kind of power did these creatures wield? His officers shouted in panic, their voices filling the bridge. "Admiral, all systems are down. We have no control over the ship. I don't understand. We were supposed to win this fight." Jorvik slammed his fist on the control panel. Silence. His mind raced, trying to find a way out. They had never lost a battle like this before. The Xeric Empire had conquered dozens of species, wiped out entire civilizations, and now they were powerless before a single warship. Then, the warship sent another message. A cold, calm human voice spoke through the fleet's communication systems. "The battle is over." Jorvik growled. "No, it's not over until I say it's over." He tried to issue another attack order, but his command screen flickered, and then vanished. Every system in his flagship went completely dark. Jorvik's heart pounded. The human voice returned. "We did not come here to conquer. We did not come here to destroy. But if you seek war with humanity, you will lose." Silence. Jorvik's breathing was heavy. His empire had always been the hunters, the superior species, the strongest force in the galaxy. But now they were the prey. His officers looked to him in desperation. "Admiral, what do we do?" Jorvik's claws shook. He had never spoken these words before. "Retreat," he whispered. And for the first time in history, the Xeric Empire fled. The once mighty Xeric fleet limped away from the battlefield, their warships drifting in silence, powerless and humiliated. The human warship did not pursue. It simply watched, floating in the void like a shadow, as the Xeric forces retreated. Admiral Jorvik sat frozen in his command chair. His claws trembled as he replayed the battle in his mind. A single enemy warship had crushed them, not by brute force, not by overwhelming firepower, but through absolute control. His officers whispered nervously, their voices filled with fear and confusion. What was that ship? What kind of technology can disable an entire fleet without firing a single shot? Jorvik had no answers. The Xeric Empire had fought many wars, conquered countless species, and seen every kind of weapon the galaxy had to offer. But never this. This was something else, something beyond their understanding. A message arrived on their comms, a simple text, displayed in the human language and quickly translated. "Next time, we won't be so merciful." Jorvik's blood ran cold. They weren't just outmatched. They had been warned. The Xeric Empire had always believed themselves to be the dominant force in the galaxy. They saw themselves as the strongest, the most advanced, the true rulers of space. But now they knew the truth. They were not the strongest. The Xeric Empire was silent. For the first time in its history, there was no victory celebration, no war speeches, no parades for returning soldiers. The news of the defeat spread quickly. Whispers filled the halls of power. Admirals, generals, and warlords demanded answers. How could this happen? How could the Empire's strongest fleet be defeated without a single human casualty? How could a single warship bring the mighty Xeric to its knees? Admiral Jorvik stood before the High Council, his body rigid, his face dark with shame. He had been the most feared warrior in the Empire. Now he was the one who lost. The council leader, an ancient Xeric named Grand Strategist Salvos, leaned forward. His deep red eyes burned into Jorvik's soul. "Explain," Salvos growled. "How did one ship defeat an armada?" Jorvik took a slow breath. "We weren't defeated by a warship," he said. His voice was hoarse, filled with something the council had never heard from him before. "Fear. The humans, they didn't fight like we expected," Jorvik continued. "They didn't just destroy us. They rendered us powerless. They wanted us to understand." "Understand what?" Salvos demanded. Jorvik's jaw clenched. His next words felt heavy in his throat. That we are not the apex predators of this galaxy. The council chamber fell deathly silent. For centuries, the Xyric Empire had seen itself as unstoppable. They had crushed every species that stood in their way. They had ruled without question. But now they knew there was something greater than them. A species that did not fear them. A species that could not be overpowered. The humans had chosen mercy. They had allowed the Xyric to retreat. But what if they hadn't? What if that warship had decided to erase the entire fleet? Salvos slowly sat back, his claws tapping against the stone table. He had lived through countless wars, seen entire civilizations wiped out by the Empire's might. But now, for the first time, he wondered, had the Xyric Empire finally met its match? The silence stretched on, heavy with unspoken fear. Then, another council member spoke, voice low and uncertain. What do we do now? Jorvik looked up, his eyes dark and unreadable. We prepare, he said. For war, the counselor asked. Jorvik shook his head. For survival. They were not the rulers. And worst of all, they were not ready for what was coming. The Xyric Empire had never known fear. Until now. For weeks, the Empire remained silent. The defeat was not spoken of in public, but every military officer, every war strategist, every high-ranking noble felt it. The humans had spared them. But for how long? Admiral Jorvik knew the truth. He had seen the power of that warship. He had felt the helplessness of having an entire fleet shut down without a single explosion. He had heard the warning. Next time, we won't be so merciful. Jorvik sat in his private war chamber, studying the recordings of the battle. Over and over again, he watched his mighty fleet fail. He analyzed every moment, searching for something, anything, that could explain how the humans had done it. Nothing. No known technology could do what that warship had done. Jorvik clenched his jaw. He had spent his life believing the Xyric were the strongest species in the galaxy. That belief was shattered. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. Enter. Officer Krell stepped inside, his expression grim. Admiral, we have intercepted a human transmission. Jorvik's eyes narrowed. Play it. Krell hesitated. Sir, you need to see this yourself. Jorvik frowned but followed Krell to the communication center. The officers at the consoles were tense. The room was dead silent. The transmission played. A human figure appeared on the screen. He was older, dressed in a simple black uniform with no insignia. His eyes were cold. And when he spoke, his voice was calm, but carried a warning. To the Xyric Empire, we are not your enemies. But if you continue down this path, you will not survive. Humanity does not seek war, but we will end it if necessary. Choose wisely. The message cut out. The room remained silent. Jorvik stared at the blank screen, his claws curling into a fist. He knew what this meant. This wasn't a simple warning. It was a test. The humans wanted to see if the Xyric were wise enough to stop before it was too late. Jorvik turned to Krell. His voice was low, almost a whisper. They don't fear us. Krell swallowed hard. No, sir. Jorvik took a slow breath. He had spent his entire life fighting, conquering, proving that the Xyric were the strongest in the galaxy. But now he understood. They weren't. And if the Council did not listen, if they chose war instead of peace, then the Xyric Empire would face something far worse than defeat. Extinction. Jorvik had a choice to make. And this time, he had to make the right one. Admiral Jorvik stood before the High Council of the Xyric Empire, his expression grim, his claws resting stiffly at his sides. The tension in the Grand Chamber was thick. The rulers of the Empire, elders, warlords, strategists, stared at him, their gazes filled with disbelief, anger, and though few would admit it, fear. You suggest we do nothing. Grand Strategist Salvos's voice was cold, his red eyes narrowing. You want us to bow to these humans? Jorvik's jaw clenched. He had fought for the Empire his entire life, led victorious wars across the stars, watched entire civilizations burn at his command. But never before had he stood here pleading for restraint. "We don't have a choice," Jorvik said firmly. "If we fight them, we will lose. We saw what a single warship did to our strongest fleet. What happens if they send 100? A murmur spread through the chamber. "This is madness," one of the warlords snarled. "We are the Zyrek. We do not surrender. We strike first, and we strike hard." Jorvik slammed his fist on the table. "And that's exactly why we are here now." His voice echoed through the chamber. "We thought ourselves invincible. We believed we ruled this galaxy, but we were wrong." Silence. Jorvik's next words were slow and deliberate. "If we attack, the humans will not just defeat us. They will erase us." The council members shifted uneasily. Salvos stared at Jorvik for a long moment before finally asking, "Then what do you propose, Admiral?" Jorvik's next words were heavier than any order he had ever given. "We talk." The chamber erupted in outrage. "Diplomacy with savages. You would have us beg for peace. The Zyrek Empire does not negotiate." Jorvik stood firm. He let the shouting continue, knowing that deep down, they all felt the same fear he did. They just didn't want to admit it. When the voices finally quieted, Jorvik spoke again. "We either change, or we die." Zalvos leaned forward, his gaze unreadable. "And if the humans refuse to negotiate?" Jorvik exhaled slowly. "Then we pray they remain merciful." The council chamber fell deathly silent. For the first time in its history, the Zyrek Empire faced a battle it could not win. And the choice before them was not one of victory, but of survival.